Hi, I'm Ellen from Evansville, Vanderburgh County Public Library with another STEAM demonstration where we talk about science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics and explore the world around us. And today I'm outside because I wanted to talk about the wind. But it's not a very windy day today. I've been waiting and waiting, but there's still not any wind around. I don't know what I'm going to do. March and April are supposed to be the windiest months in this area. But so far, it's been a pretty calm day. Oh, wait a minute. Look, I think I see something over there. Come with me. I want to show you something.
Look at this. I did find some wind. We can tell because this one leaf is blowing in the breeze. Isn't it interesting that we can feel the wind, we can hear the wind, we can see what the wind does, but we can't actually see the wind? I think that's interesting. Today we're going to talk about wind and weather, and we're going to make a windsock, which we can use as an instrument to observe the wind.
Here is what you'll need for your basic windsock. You'll need some type of sturdy paper. This is poster board. You could also use a light cardboard. You could also use cardstock, something sturdy. This is 11 inches by 17 inches. That was the original design, the original instructions. But I decided I wanted something waterproof, something I could leave outside for a few days and it would hold up if it got rained on, wouldn't fall apart. So I found craft foam sheets. I couldn't get one quite as large as the poster board, but this is 9 inches by 12 inches. It'll make a nice windsock. It'll be a bit smaller, but it'll work just as well. So craft foam sheets or some type of sturdy cardboard you can use for your windsock. You will also need some yarn, a hole punch or something to punch holes, a pencil, a stapler, scissors, and you'll also want to make streamers for your windsock. That's what's going to flutter in the breeze so that you can see what the wind is doing. The original instructions asked for paper party streamers. We see these all the time at stores. Easy to get, or you could cut up strips of tissue paper. That'll be fine if your windsock is not going to get wet, if it's not going to be out in the weather. I want mine to stay out for a few days, so I had to think of something I could use to make streamers that would hold up to the weather. And I found in my closet a very large shopping bag. And I cut it into strips. This was a very large bag. I cut it into strips and that will hold up in the weather and do just fine. It'll flutter in the breeze and I think that'll do the trick. So this is what you need for the basic windsock. I took apart my example of my windsock so that I could show you the patterns that I made with stamps. We're going to make the stamps and then we're going to decorate our windsock. So I took my stamps and I made geometric patterns, and a pattern is something that is repeated at least twice. So I put on here some circle, rectangle, circle, rectangle, circle, rectangle. That was my first repeating pattern. And then I thought, well, my next row, I'll just do squares all the way across. Then I have some triangles. Some I put right side up, some right side down, right side down, upside down, going across. And then I thought, well, I'll just repeat those 3 patterns. So I started here. I've got circle, square, circle, square. I've got a row of squares and then another row of triangles. So you can kind of think of what kind of pattern you want to make across your windsock. You could do patterns with shapes, patterns with colors, but we're going to be making our own stamps. So for that, you will need something to cover your work surface. We're going to be painting, so you'll want something to cover your work surface. This is part of that plastic bag that I cut up for streamers. You will need paint. Now, once again, you have to make the decision whether or not your windsock is going to stay outside for long periods of time or not. If it is, you'll probably want a waterproof paint. This is acrylic paint. It will last a lot longer, but you also need to be very, very careful when you're using it because it doesn't wash up quite as easily. So I'm going to use acrylic paint. You could use washable tempera paint if you're going to bring your windsock in after a while and use it as a decoration in your house. So you could use washable tempera paint. Some type of thick paint will be good. You'll need some small dishes to put the paint in, something shallow that you can dip your stamps in. You will need a paintbrush. You will need, whether or not you're going to have a windsock made out of paper or one that's made out of sheets of craft foam, you will need some craft foam to make your stamps. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the craft foam and cut it up into geometric shapes, and then we're going to have to make a stamper. The original directions said to use wood blocks to put the foam shapes on to use as a stamp, but I didn't have any wood blocks, so I had to play around with some ideas. And first thing I tried was, here I've got one of my triangle stamps, and it's on a small jar lid. And it seemed to work fine until I was using it, and I just put a little piece of duct tape in here so that I could hold on to it and stamp. And it worked fine, but as you can see, the jar lid is just as big as the stamp, so I really couldn't see where the stamp was, and some of my stamping went kind of sideways. So I had to think of something where I could see the stamp and use it. So what I came up with, it seemed to work really well, is I found small bottles, something with a flat lid. And so I can just tape the stamp, the foam stamp shape onto the end, and I can use it as a stamp, and I can see where I'm stamping. So I think that will work a lot better. So I have hand sanitizer bottles. For some reason, I have a lot of those around. Or you could use a tube of hand creams. That's got a nice wide bottom on it that you could use. Some other thing you could use, and it's nice for small hands to hold on to. I think that would make a really good stamp. So you will need all of these supplies. You'll need to protect your work surface. So you will need some duct tape also for the basic windsock and also for creating your stamps. So I think we're ready to get started. Let's get stamping. I noticed on my example for my windsock that the lines of stamping were kind of crooked, so I thought I might make some guidelines that I could follow across. So I would get my handy ruler and I would measure some lines. I'd start in about a ½ inch, mark a ½ inch from the top and a ½ inch from the bottom, and I would do it on both sides. And here I would start, move my ruler down, and I would make a little mark every 2 inches. So 2, 4, 6, 8. And I'll make that same on the other side, and then I'll draw a very, very, very faint line. So when you've got your lines drawn, very faintly, just to use as a guide, now you have to think of what kind of a pattern do you want to do. I think I'm going to alternate circles and triangles going across. And so I've got my 2 stamps, and I dunked my circle stamp into the paint and got it all even, and now I can alternate circles and triangles. So here's a circle. Oh, there we go. And then I'm going to use this to rest my paint, my one stamp on while I'm using the other. So here's this one. I can stamp it in like this, but then you want to check, make sure your whole shape is covered. So that's why I use the paintbrush. And then I can use my triangle. Let's see here. I'll do a triangle. Boop. And then I still have enough paint on this. I could do another circle. Boop. Then I'll do my triangle again. See, I can see where my triangle is. This helps a lot. There we go. Oh, what comes next? Circle. There, and that's as far as it goes. All right. My triangle looks a little blobby, doesn't it? So I need to probably put less paint on it or do some painting, doing some, maybe get some of the excess off. All right, so what am I going to do for my next? I have a square and I have a rectangle. I could use my circles again. Let's see, I'm going to keep it all one color. I don't think I'm going to alternate colors. You could if you want to. Let's see, I think I'm going to do rectangle, square, rectangle, square. Now, so I could do my rectangle this way or this way, a square. Let's see, so I'm going to dip in my square. It didn't get all covered, so you kind of wipe it around with a paintbrush. Get some of the excess off of the sides, because I think that's what made a triangle kind of a blob. Might want to practice on a sheet of paper before you do it on your Windsock. That might give you a little bit of practice. You know, look, I can see I've got some excess paint on the sides there. Okay, let's see how this goes. Let's do a square. Boom. And I will do a rectangle. All right, which way should I think I'll go. I think I'll go up and down. Like that. Oh, not all of it touched, did it? Let's get a thin coat on there. There we go. So a stamp's meant to be kind of not solid. I'm going to paint this a little bit more. I think this pattern will be able to repeat a few more times because the rectangle is so narrow. Okay, so I could either start over and repeat this pattern, circle, triangle. I could do circle, triangle, and square, rectangle there, or I could even do a different pattern. I could do just one shape all the way across. And it's up to you what you would like to do. I think I'm going to do, I'm going to repeat those two rows again. I think so. We'll have a pattern repeating this way, and we'll also have patterns of rows going that way. I think that's what I'm going to do. While we're waiting for the paint to dry, I thought we could talk a little bit about the wind. What is wind? Well, we know what it's made of, isn't it? Don't we? It's made of air. And what's that air doing? It's moving from one place to another. So we could say that wind is a mass of air that's moving from one place to another. But what makes it move? Well, the air moves, or the wind moves, because of differences in air pressure. Did you know that air had pressure, or that air had weight? It does. I always thought that air was light, that it didn't have any weight. But when you have all the air all around us and up in our atmosphere weighing down on us, it does have weight, and we call that air pressure. Now, air pressure isn't the same all over the globe. There are low pressure areas and high pressure areas, and the difference is caused by the sun. Air is made up of molecules, tiny particles that we can't see. And when that air is warmed by the sun, the molecules do three things. They speed up, they move away from each other, and they rise. They become lighter. They're putting less pressure on the earth, so we call that low pressure. There's my fancy special effects. It's orange because it's warm. Low pressure. Cool air, when air becomes cool, the molecules do three things, but they're exactly the opposite. The air molecules slow down, they move closer together, and they press down on the earth with more weight, so we call that high pressure. It's blue because they're cool. And as I said, there are low pressure areas and high pressure areas all around the globe. But air tends to move from high pressure to low pressure. As the low pressure air begins to rise, the cool air, the cool high pressure air, rushes in to fill the space. And that rushing in is called the wind. So why is the wind sometimes a gentle breeze and other times it's a violent storm? Well, it has to do with the difference, the amount of difference between the low pressure and the high pressure. So the greater the difference, the stronger the wind will be. If you listen to weather reports, you'll notice that there's a lot of talk about high pressure and low pressure systems. You might see H's and L's all over a weather map. And they also talk about air temperature, and they also talk about what direction the wind is coming from. So wind plays an important part of our weather. They bring in the storms and the clouds, and they also push them out of our area. So paying attention to the wind is very important. So the paint is dried, and now it's time to put everything together. You'll need your scissors, hole punch, duct tape, stapler, yarn, and your plastic streamers. So just take your design on the foam core or on the cardboard, whatever, and just bend it back and staple at the ends. Push down, it gets kind of bowed in the middle, so you have to kind of push down on it to get the edges straight. There we go. And I can staple it here. Might need an extra pair of hands when you're doing this. Now it kind of bows in the middle, so if you can get your stapler to go in a little further and get a staple a little further inside. Okay, and do the same here, so it won't be as bowed in the middle. Get the stapler to go in as far as you can, and staple it together. That'll keep it together on a windy day. There you go, we've got our tube. And now we need to make a way to attach it to something, either to a tree or a pole or something. So measure out 4 strings or 3 strings, about 12 inches long. Okay, with your hole punch, you'll need to make some holes right in this 1/2 inch area that I had marked off. Probably find either 3 or 4 holes kind of spaced equally apart. Let's see, so if I do one here. So I just kind of look where, put one here. And then one over here. There. And then you'll tie your yarn in. You can do 4 strings if you like. Just tie them there. Then take all 3 strings and bring them together. Bring them together at the top. Make sure they're fully extended, and then tie a knot at the top with all 3. There. And so now we have a way to hang our windsock. Now we'll put the streamers on that'll catch the wind. So I'm just taking the streamers, attaching a piece of duct tape, like that, and just taping it to the inside of the windsock. And there we have our streamers for our windsock. We're all set. Let's take it outside and see how it works.
Here's my windsock all finished. And I moved outside away from my house to a place where there's nothing really blocking the wind. You might want to do that with your windsock as well. And then watch what happens. You can be a scientist by using your windsock to observe the wind. Watch the windsock from day to day and record your observations. Where's the wind coming from? Is it the same as or different from yesterday? Did the wind change direction? Is the wind strong or mild? You might be able to make some observations and then begin to notice some patterns in the weather. Are clouds blowing into or out of the area with the wind? Record your observations in a notebook, and you'll begin to see patterns in the weather. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed learning about wind and weather and making a windsock. Don't forget, for more STEAM demonstrations and story times and craft programs for teens and adults, take a look at our YouTube channel or our Facebook page. And as always, at evpl.org, you can take a look at all of our materials and services.